What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of award-winning Dr. Vibe show, but it's not a Dr. Vibe show thing tonight. We're going to continue our epic conversations with two absolutely wonderful people when it comes to real estate. We got Ray McMillan and we've got Casey Ann Bratfield. And Casey is a wonderful real estate professional, and she is really passionate of creating wealth and income, especially for single mothers. And she, in the last few months, became a single mother, but she is so passionate about helping, especially single mothers and women, create wealth, especially through real estate. So let's say hello to Casey.
Hi, guys.
How we doing?
I'm good. I'm doing so well. I'm really excited for this. I'm actually not a single mother. I have a partner, and we are.
My correction.
Yes. But I am absolutely passionate, as you said, about helping mothers and investors, first-time buyers, acquire their first home, and even retirees really settle into the future for their family. So we're going to jump into it today, and I'm so excited.
Excellent. And we're bringing in, as usual, the heavy hitter, Ray McMillan. He is an accredited mortgage professional who has actually actively involved in the investment banking and lending industry since 1994. But he don't look like he's not, he looking good for 1994, right? After graduating from the University of Guyana with a degree in geography and economics, he migrated to Canada in 1989. He first entered the financial industry in 1994 when he joined Standard Life Assurance Company as an investment advisor. After a few years, he moved over to RBC Insurance and then to CIBC, where he spent time as a financial advisor. His primary role at CIBC involved providing clients with investment advice and underwriting personal loans and mortgages. With the extensive knowledge and experience he received at CIBC, he decided to move full-time into mortgage brokering in 1999. So he has evaluated experience, family. Evaluated experience. He opened up the doors of the McMillan Group in November 1999 and has been licensed as a mortgage professional since then, with more than $500 million. This is right, B people, not M, B, $1 billion worth of residential commercial mortgages founded since 1999. And one of the two of the biggest things I love about Ray, first of all, it's generational. His son is part of the business. And second of all, he wants to help melanated people create wealth. So always, never enough time to give the proper introduction. We're just going to bring him onto the stage. Ray McMillan, what's going on, Ray? How you doing?
Sorry, folks, that's muted. Good evening, everybody. Good evening, Casey. Good evening, Dr. Vibe. Good to see you both. I am doing very well. The sun is shining, man.
Yeah, and it's warm weather.
It's top down season for me. You know what I mean? I'm good. For that top down, I'm good. I look for that stuff. You know what I mean? Top down season.
One of the first times I spoke with Ray, he said, I only like drive my car in the summer. So once it gets up below a certain temperature, I'm out of here. I'm not driving around anymore around here.
I want to know what we're driving with the top down.
Well, you know what? I'm just the appetizer. Family, have a great conversation. Looking forward to getting some empowerment and knowledge. So I'll let to you two. Take care and have a great convo.
Thanks, Dr. Vibe. What a pleasure. We're so lucky to have Dr. Vibe as a part of it. He is having amazing key conversations almost every single day. Follow him on YouTube if you're not already at the Dr. Vibe show. For some amazing content. But yeah, actually, Dr. Vibe introduced us today, and we've been able to have these conversations as a result of him. So I'm so very grateful. And today we have an important conversation, something that I think a lot of people are whispering about amongst themselves every day as they reflect on the real estate market. And I keep hearing, oh, there's a price correction. Oh, the bubble's bursting. Oh, prices are dropping. This is the time to get in and get a huge deal on real estate. Not entirely untrue if you're trying to time the market. It's spring. It's a spring market, and I've looked at the numbers. Condos are down, semis are down, towns are down. Detached houses are still going up. but this is the spring market. This is when real estate is usually alive and passionate and fiery. So we know there's something going on. As real estate professionals, we know that there's a little bit of a correction happening as interest rates are reportedly rising and are rising, as I'm sure Ray can talk about. But even still, even in the midst of this erratic real estate market, there are always opportunities, and that's what we want to talk to you today. So let's jump into it. Ray, do you want to talk a little bit about the interest rates and what's happening on the mortgage side of things?
Well, we've seen rates rise over the last couple of months, the fixed rates, that is. And then the government, the central bank made an adjustment to the overnight lending rate, thus increasing the prime rate mortgages. But we're still qualifying at a stress test rate of 5.25%. So our qualification hasn't really changed significantly, even though rates have risen. So what is important to potential home buyers is understanding what they can afford in terms of their monthly cash flow. Because you can still qualify, but because the prime rate and the fixed rate have increased, like the fixed rate has gone from sub 2% in January to just above 4% right now. So that's a significant increase in a very short space of time on what your mortgage payments would be. If you start planning to purchase back in January, so you've got to go back to the drawing board and reassess what your monthly affordability is. That's one of the primary things that has happened over the last couple of months.
So what you're saying is if you got approved for, let's say, $2,500 mortgage per month, with the rates going up, you're now paying what, $3,000? What is it? What's the difference?
If you had a pre-approval, then you're fine, because the pre-approval is usually good for anywhere from 60 to 120 days. The challenge was if you didn't have a pre-approval and you were just basing your numbers with your partner, your spouse, based on the rates at the time, and rates started to rise up, you have to now sit and reassess what you can qualify for. Because that number will have changed quite a bit, between $300 to $400 a month. It would have actually been adjusted upwards. So you have to sit back, reassess the situation, and determine how to move forward.
Right. And for some people, for lots of people, we're in a recessionary period where, inflation is super high, gas is expensive. So if you went from thinking that you're going to pay $2,500 a month to having to pay $2,800 a month, or, that's a big difference for your pockets. And some people, it makes buying real estate right now unrealistic. But it doesn't have to if you plan for it, which is what you're saying. Right, Ray?
That's most definite. This is a very large purchase. It's the largest purchase most of us will make. So we can't plan this in a few days, in a few weeks, in a few months. This has to take, a very long-term approach to plan it properly. And we try to educate our clients in doing that. So, we want to remove the emotional rush into the market where you go out one day and see a home and say, I want to buy it. We have to sit down and look at our income, look at our debt, and look at the down payment. We are still very fortunate here to be able to buy a home with a 5% down payment, under the CMA, under the most of the default insured. So your down payment doesn't change significantly. If you look at the $800,000 home in January and the price adjusted slightly, it's going to be around the same thing, probably around $50,000 or $60,000 down payment you require. With the 5% plus the 10% and the above about 500,000. But you mentioned the inflation, and that's also very important because everything has gone up. So between 2020 and now, you've seen a 10% increase of almost everything we consume. Right? So you've got to take into consideration that everything that you are spending money on is costing you about 10% more. So your available cash that's in your pot at the end of the month or end of the 2 weeks when you get paid is now buying a lot less. So
I feel that in my groceries.
Yes.
I'm sure everyone else does.
Yeah. So you look at the price of gasoline. The cost of filling my car has gone from $90 to $130 over the last year. So if you were commuting to work every day and you're driving from north of the city or east or west of the city and coming into the core, your gas consumption is your gas. What you spend on gas is increasing significantly. So you can't look at your mortgage payment in isolation, particularly if you're going to live in the suburbs. You have to consider that additional cost.
Absolutely. It's yep. Oh, that must have come from my mom, who might be using my YouTube account. Everything has gone up. Everything really has gone up,
Definitely.
except for wages, which is a good point. You're reading a lot of. There was an article in the Star, I think today, about that. But yeah, wages aren't keeping up with inflation. Wages aren't keeping up with really the cost. They haven't moved, and everything else is more expensive. And we know that makes it hard for us to afford more things. But how can we win in real estate today is what we're going to get to by the end of the conversation. So all hope is not lost. I follow a lot of Reddit accounts on the Canadian housing market, and a lot of people are feeling doomed by this. But there's still a chance. There's still light at the end of the tunnel, and that's what we're here to talk about.
Yes, there's always opportunity. I mean, you have to really look around the market more
All right,
carefully.
let's dive into what the let's talk about the bubble a little bit more and what that means, and let's talk about the market today in comparison to 2017, when the market dipped a bit about 5 years ago.
Well, I don't the word bubble because I don't think that our market here is in a bubble. We've got some very tight lending conditions here for mortgages, very tight mortgage conditions. So it's not like what happened in the US back in 2008. I mean, that was a bubble because there was a lot of indiscretionary lending practices by many lenders, some of them who were here in Canada also. And even though the US market corrected significantly at that point in time, it didn't affect us as much. We had a slight swing in values. In 2017, we had a similar run up as what we had here this year, and then it pulled back in some pockets. And it pulled back basically in the homes that were higher priced, because those homes tend to have less demand. There's less people buying homes, above
Over $2 million.
over $1 million. Yeah, over $1 million mark. Today, you've got more regular homes, basic homes selling for $1 million. So, but people have to qualify for those mortgages, right? So with the market adjusting, it allows more people who have got everything lined up properly to get into the market. And I always tell my clients, real estate is going to go up in the long term all the time. But in the short term, you will get those minor dips. So it's not a straight line going up vertically. It's going to be undulating. So people need to understand that, and they need to step back and reassess. And I keep saying you have to step back and reassess what you're doing. That's very important. So as the market corrects, it allows those who want to buy get into the market. Right. So if you sold your home, for $120,000, and you're moving into a larger home, $1.2 million, sorry, moving into a larger home, and the market corrects while you've already sold your home, you now have more options as a buyer to buy the home you're not going into, because you have now larger homes at a nicely discounted price. So, I refrain from using the word bubble. I look at more as a price adjustment, as a matter of supply and demand. We're not entering into the busiest time of the market, of the buying season. This is the spring market. We're heading into a very long weekend. The weather is nicer. The sun is out. And people are going to start moving around looking at homes for their families. So, I think there's a lot of opportunity for us.
Absolutely. And I have a colleague I was talking to the other day, and he's been observing when there is a slight price correction, how far that correction dips to. And he says he hasn't observed a correction in Ontario over 20. And that's like when he has to really look for that 20% dip. But he has been able to find a couple. And so he said he hasn't observed a dip further down than 20%. So the prices haven't gone less than 20%, even during a market correction period, in his observations. So what that means is, if you're looking on the market now and you're waiting and you're timing it and you're like, I'm waiting for the market to crash, you may not see less than a 20% discount off of the home that you're looking at. And that you won't find that everywhere. You're not going to find that everywhere, because, as you already said, Ray, the market has been going up steadily, even though it's not a straight line. It dips sometimes, but you're not gonna, I don't think, and I'm not predicting the future, and I can never do that, but what we're seeing we may not ever see a crash where things go, 50%, homes are 50% below market value or below the price it was yesterday. So if that's what you're waiting for, I don't know, guys. I don't know if that's ever going to happen for you. It might be time to adjust.
What we are seeing, though, Casey, is an adjustment in the appraisals. So before, when you can appraise the home, it's going to appraise whatever you think the value is or what the purchase price is.
Right.
Those appraisals are a little more conservative now. And that's the challenge that some buyers are going to find themselves running into. So we bought a home back in February with a closing, at the end of May. You had a long closing.
Mm-hmm.
The lender requires an appraisal to complete the transaction.
Yep.
It might not appraise for the price you bought it for. It may appraise for $50,000 less or $100,000 less. So we've seen a bit of an adjustment in the appraisals. And that's where, I've always advised clients who came to us to get pre-qualified. I always advise them to try and avoid that multiple bidding war situation, because at that point, you will most likely end up paying a lot more for the property based on getting caught up in that emotional rush between multiple buyers that you're trying to buy the same home. And
So
I saw it in 2017.
Sorry.
I saw it in 2017, and not as much this year, this time around, but that is usually the time a lot of buyers find themselves running into.
So I want to break that down a little bit further. So if I purchased and I had a bidding war, there were 5 other people, and the house was, I don't know, $699 list, and I end up buying it for $1 million, let's say. And I go to the bank finally to get my mortgage, and they send in someone to appraise it, and they appraise it at $899. What happens to the money that I paid at that $1 million price range? How does that work in the mortgage world?
Well, hopefully you can go back to the vendor's realtor and say, well, listen, this property is appraised. Can be doing a readjustment in the price, and at that point, it's at the discretion of the vendor. However, from the lender's point of view, we will only lend on the appraised value. So we will give you your financing, your 80% of the $800,000. That $200,000 shortfall, you have to find that money. Right? So, I mean, we've had those experiences in the past where clients did that. It happened back in 2008. There's an adjustment, and people were trying to find money to close deals. Some folks walked away from the transaction where they just lose the deposit. So if you had a $25,000 deposit on the transaction, on the offer, you tell the vendor keep the deposit and wish them all the best. Now, what will probably happen is that the vendor will probably sue you, because they signed a contract with $1 million. The market adjusted in the interim before you actually close, and they have made their purchase decision. Because most times people are selling, they're selling to buy. They have made their purchase decision based on them netting X number of dollars from the sale that they can no longer do. So usually it's a snowball effect, where there's many other parties involved and many people not be able to close their transactions.
Absolutely. And then they can argue that they could have gotten that money from someone else who, had the money, and that's what they're suing for. They could have had other opportunities that you stopped them from getting access to, which, Yeah, and I think there are people who are going through that right now. And I feel for you, because what we've seen and what I've seen, and I think a lot of real estate agents have seen over the past years, is people are willing to jump in in the emotional frenzy that is the bidding war, and throw away their conditions and throw away their hats in order to get in the game. And for some people, like, I totally understand. You want the house of your dreams. You want that property more than anything, but you really have to be careful, because you are potentially setting yourself up for trouble down the line, which could be what's going on right now. I'm actually a person who doesn't love bidding wars. I love the fact, I would just rather tell people, like, look, we're looking for $1 million, and who wants to bring their $1 million here? And the first person to get here wins, right? Like, I'm all for transparency. That's what I would always prefer. But blind bidding has worked for a lot of clients in the past. I just think it's about to change, and I think there are other solutions that we can employ as real estate professionals, and maybe after this market correction, that's what will happen. We'll see. There was, I think, blind bidding was voted. I think it's about to end anyways. I think we're moving towards open bidding, and so we'll all know what the prices are in the near future.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, me too. I'm excited to see what that will look like for us as a real estate culture. But even more importantly, let's talk about what the opportunities are now in this current fluctuating market.
I think with prices coming down, it allows that first-time buyer to now get into the market. So there's a couple things that are happening. I mean, you've got that entry-level home has come down in price. That townhome around the $600,000 price range. But what you also have is a segment of the population who, since over the last 2 years, have worked remotely. And I think that person is actually in a very good position because they're going to move into markets that are a lot less expensive if they're either working remotely on a full-time basis or on a hybrid model. Mm-hmm. And they don't leave the province; they can stay right here in the province. I mean, I've got a couple of clients who are, single female mothers. They're making about $80,000 a year, and they couldn't buy anything here in Toronto or the Greater Toronto area. But if you move out into St. Catharines or Waterloo, you can find yourself a townhome for probably, high 300,000s, low 400,000s. So with an $80,000 income with no debt, you qualify reasonably comfortably. And it allows you to get into the market. Because I always tell people, you want to get that first property. And the first property you buy today is not exactly what people bought 25 years ago. So you've got to change you have to adjust your expectation. It might not be a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom home with a garage. It might be a 2-bedroom and then 1-bathroom townhome. But you can't discount the fact that over a period of time, that property will go up in value. And get into the market is what is more important, particularly for us as Afro-Caribbean residents in Canada. Because there's a huge disparity in ownership between the general Canadian population, the white population, and then the African population. Or let's just start the black population in Canada. I mean, our home ownership rates are less than 50%, while for white Canadians, it's around 71%. So the sooner we get into the market as a homeowner, the faster we can start creating wealth for ourselves and our families. Because most of the wealth that families have in North America is acquired through owning real estate.
Yeah.
You can't wait to find the right property or wait to have enough money or wait to get that new job. You've got to make that decision now. Buy that 2-bedroom condo in Malvern, buy that 2-bedroom townhouse in Guelph or in Oshawa, and get into the market. And if you're a young person who's still living at home with your parents, then you should be in a position, because they've given you the chance to live relatively inexpensively, to get into the market easier. And we are seeing that also, particularly around our younger male clients. We have a lot of young clients who work in the trade, but they make reasonably good money. And they're getting themselves into the market buying a small bungalow or small semi-detached home. So we've got to really change how we look at buying real estate. And if you've got young siblings who are still at home also and they're working, they finished college or finished university, then buy the property together with each other. It might not be the ideal home where you want to live at the neighborhood. Rent the property out, dispose it to the lender, and continue living with your parents. Do it for 5 years, acquire the equity, and then at that point you can either sell it, refinance it, and give the one sibling money. So if I'm going from having a $25,000 down payment, in a 4 to 5 year period, you can acquire a $200,000 or $300,000 down payment. But we have to be very, very purposeful in how we approach buying real estate today. And the family has become a more cohesive unit in acquiring that first property. We've got to help the younger generation getting their step into the door. So yes, homes are a bit more expensive. And I take fault with some of the realtors. I mean, everybody keeps on sharing the same information, that prices keep on rising every single day. That's a bit of sensational news for me. What I want to see from my realtor partners is you telling me, I found you a great deal in Oshawa. Instead of telling me what everybody's telling us, that houses are, average price homes are now $1.4 million. That's an irrelevant bit of information. So let us see you work for us. you tell me if we can find you this deal here with a finished basement and you can rent for $1,200 a month or whatever the case is. That's what I want to see from realtors. Like, let us move away from all the TV song bites, and then, like, really show people that there's stuff out there. And, like I said, I got a client who has sent me some listings yesterday, properties in Catherine and Guelph, and I was shocked at the prices. They're all below $400,000. Right? But
I'm surprised because only a month or so ago, I was looking at townhouses for around $510,000 in the same area, St. Catherine. So the prices that you're talking about, I haven't seen them, so I'm gonna have a look. Yeah. But I want to respond quickly to your comment. You're absolutely right. As a realtor who is looking to find opportunities for my clients, I will tell you straight up, it's more work. It takes longer time for me to find where cash flowing opportunities to run the numbers on a property that's going to net you wealth, or even mitigate some of your costs, so you're not just paying a mortgage. Maybe you're renting out your basement. I am taking that extra step for my clients to make sure that they're able to make money off of their purchase, or at least save money off of their purchase. But I don't know many realtors who are. Only the most dedicated and committed are. And I think that will have to change. I think some realtors' approaches will change after this particular time in the market. But there are always going to be some realtors who are willing to go above and beyond. And I know a lot of those people, and I'm one of them. So I do recommend, I'm just speaking up on behalf of my, on behalf of my profession. There are some people who are willing to go above and beyond. It's just who you talk to, what you look for. Yeah.
Because rising prices only helps the sellers, not the buyers. So to continue to share that narrative is not impacting that young person who wants to get into the market. They're reading that news very differently from someone who's owned the house for 20 years and wants to to cash in the equity. So let's change the conversation and let's start to share among our community that let's share those gems that we find. You found a property down at Lambton and Eglinton, or Lambton and Jane Street in Toronto. It's a 2-bedroom bungalow for $700,000. I mean, that is what you want to share. And we have to educate the client on the benefits of living in certain neighborhoods, living close to transit. So it's not the perfect home, but you're on a subway line that runs 20 hours a day, or you're on a bus route that runs 24 hours a day, or you're close to the GO station or the subway station. You've got you can turn home into a legal duplex. So let's look for those kind of opportunities, because that's what we want to look for in this market, right? And as much as the market is tight, there are people who are selling their homes every day for some reason or the other. There are people who are going into retirement homes. There are people who have passed away. People gotten divorced. So you've got to expand the network and help the clients build their net worth. It's a very simple model, because I'm not a realtor, but I get calls from clients every day who are in some sort of crisis. I got who are prepared to sell their home and they want to look at alternatives, and I can usually connect them to a realtor and they can put that transaction together. So I think we've got to dig a little deeper and help our clients get to the next level, particularly our young clients or young buyers.
Yeah, I think one of the most difficult things for me has been to try and communicate to clients to change the perspective from, I want that house for me and my family with the white picket fence, the American Canadian dream, and get that people to start opening their mind to thinking, okay, maybe you won't be living in this house right away, but maybe you will get into the real estate market by buying an investment property, or maybe you rent out the basement and you live in the main floor, or you live in the basement and have your tenants live in the main floor, so that you don't have to, so you can save on your expenses and you can make some money. I don't think it's easy for people to understand, because they think, oh, I have to make a sacrifice and I have to deal with someone upstairs, or I have to manage a property. But what I don't think people are realizing is the way to create wealth isn't just to buy a home and live in it and pay it off for the rest of your life, right? So let's talk a little bit. What does that look like? What are the financial options? How does that result in financial wealth if you just buy a home and sit in it and pay down the mortgage and live mortgage free? What does that get you?
Not a whole lot. It's a paid off house. Not a whole lot. I mean, and a lot of us are debt averse. The goal is to pay off this mortgage, have no mortgage, and it seems like a major accomplishment for many of the members of our community. But that's not all the solution. I think if you have kids or grandkids who may need assistance trying to buy their first home, paying off the house at 55 or 60, that's amazing. But what after that? Because when you retire, your lifestyle, your leisure lifestyle, will be substantially more than when you were working. So your need for money, for leisure, is probably going to triple. So you're still spending money. And if all you have is paid off home and possibly a small pension coming in from your employer or from the federal government, then what's next? So let's use the home as leverage, right? Let's figure out, and there are vehicles in place and products in place to do that, right? Let's leverage this property to help your family, and let's leverage this property to enjoy a better lifestyle. And you can do that through a reverse mortgage, through a HELOC, or just by downsizing, right? Because if you're in your late 60s, you had a 4-bedroom home in the suburbs, as you get close to doing less, you might not need that large home anymore. So you sell it and you buy a smaller home and you give your kids the inheritance earlier. I always make the reference to other communities, particularly white communities, where you got they call them trust fund babies. You're at 21 or 25 or 30, they get their trust fund money that the parents had saved for them when they were born. So it allows them to start doing things and creating wealth sooner and earlier than us. But in our community, the assets are not shared until the matriarch or the patriarch dies. And by then, you've got adult children who are in their 50s or 60s and grandchildren who are in their 30s probably, and they've struggled most of their life. Meanwhile, this person sat in a property worth $1.5 million free and clear. And then when they pass, then they're trying to divvy up the money now among all the, so let's do it earlier. Right? Let's find the right products, and there are several of them. Let's have the family conversation. Let's put the estates and wills and trusts in place, and let's figure out how to access the money sooner and give everybody a little head up, a little leg up. Because if you got a elderly parent who has a home that they bought 40 years ago for $120,000 and it's worth $1.3 million today, you take out $400,000 in some kind of mortgage vehicle, and you give each of your 3 kids or whoever $100,000 each, and they buy a home with as much down payment as they possibly can. Because the hardest part of entering the market today is not necessarily always the affordability at the end of the month. It's finding that down payment. That's the biggest set, or paying off the debt that they acquired. Because many of our home buyers today have significant personal debt, and some of it might be useless debt, but some of it is actually student loan debt. We've got people who have done their first degree and done their master's, done a PhD, and they've acquired a lot of debt over the last 4 to 8 years. So it makes qualifying for a mortgage very difficult. You have an $8,000 student loan, it's very difficult to qualify for a mortgage that debt. So if your parent helps you to pay it off or pay it down sooner, and so I think that giving the inheritance earlier rather than delaying it until that person passes away, they give significant help to our community. I met a client here a few days ago. They're Portuguese background, and the gentleman is probably in his 40s. They're married, and he alone works. He's the sole bread income earner in the household. His wife's a stay-at-home mom for their young children. They currently live with their parents. So you got a 40-year-old man doing this, but there's a method to the madness. He's managed to buy a house lot cash and is going to build his own home. But if he wasn't living in his parents' home for the last, let's say, 4 years, he would have been able to acquire that money to buy a house lot cash. So coming back to the community, that family cooperative initiative is one of the foundations for us to get ahead. We can't do it individually. Whether the house prices go up or go down, it's still not going to make much of a difference. If the house prices drop 30%, there's going to be a large segment of the population who's still going to enter the market anyway, because the incomes aren't there. I mean, you've got a $90,000 combined income among most black households, right? And then you have a large amount of black households that are also single family households, whether they're led by women or led by men. So you've got to sit down and figure out how to really get into the market and use a different approach as to what we're currently, because it's not working.
Yeah, you said so many key things there. So many. And I agree with you. I think families do need to help each other in order to get into the market. I think if you do have an asset like a house that's paid off, as scary as it sounds, I know you spent the last 30, 40 years paying off that house, and I feel for you and you did a great job, but it's time to leverage that house so you can help other people, not just yourself. And it's a scary thought. It's a scary thought. I know, I'm scared. I was telling my grandma about this conversation, and I knew we were going to talk about this very point, and I still hesitated to even mention it in front of her, because I know that she's probably like, me, take out a new mortgage, refinance my house? Never. Like, I can already hear her saying it, you know, because she worked so hard to pay it off. And how do you explain to her that, you know what, the money's better put to use as a refinance and given to your children now so that they can buy their own homes? It's hard to explain. Who owns the home? Let's talk about that in detail. Let's talk about a refinance. Who's on the line to pay back that $400,000 to grandma now if she took it out? And how does she know for sure that her sibling, that her children or my mom or whoever she gives that money to is going to pay it back on time to her, so she's not left with additional debt when she's just living off of a pension?
But I think it has to be a family conversation first, and then sit down with necessary advisors, whether it be a mortgage professional and also a family lawyer, so that everybody understands what's going on. Everybody understands their responsibilities and the necessary and the inherent risk. Now, it's not necessarily taking a line of credit against a home. The product that actually works in that situation for someone over the age of 70 is actually a reverse mortgage, where they have the option of not making any payments on that product or paying only the interest. And at that point, they can determine as family members who is responsible for making the payment at the end of the month. So if you've got multiple siblings, 3 siblings, and they're all going to benefit from the equity takeout of the home, then each person will be responsible for making a certain amount of that payment. So it's $1,000 a month is the payment. Everybody pays their $333.33, and you pay $1,000 a month, right? But you have to have a family conversation first, and then you've got to get the professionals involved. And I would certainly recommend having a family lawyer involved to make sure everybody understands what they're doing. There's no coercion. They might be misled and go down that route. And that's not an easy conversation for many, because most Caribbean folks who migrated to North America hear very little. So to acquire a home and then pay it off is a very emotional thing for many of us. So it's a very hard conversation. I've got financial advisors I work with who are of Caribbean background, who have no interest in speaking to their elderly clients who are in their 70s or 80s about a reverse mortgage. And those same clients have no money to maintain their homes properly. The homes have got carpet that is 30 years old, and the kitchen is falling apart, and the roof needs to be replaced, but they don't have the money to do it. So they're borrowing money, lines of credits, and that kind of stuff at 70, 20 years old, right? While the product is there through financial institutions to allow you to leverage your equity inexpensively and be comfortable and help your family at the same time. So it has to be a family conversation. Then once the family is in agreement, then you bring in the necessary partners, the mortgage professional who understands that product, who needs those kind of clients. Then you get the lawyer involved, the family lawyer, and not just any lawyer, family lawyer. You get the wills and the trusts and the estate planning done properly. You speak with a taxman and an accountant who understands what the tax implications are for those involved. So it's a long conversation, right? But we have to pull on the professionals in our community, and we have to do things properly. It's the only way we're going to survive and create wealth and grow. There's no other way. We can't do it individually. It's not possible, at least not today.
Okay. Yeah. I agree with you. I'm looking at like the income isn't there. We already said it. And just recapping, the income isn't there. We don't have enough money. We have to draw that money from somewhere. Some of our family members do have that money through the equity in their home. It only makes sense that we would share that wealth with the people that are closest to us, so they can also win in real estate and use that money to purchase their own homes. And I'm not 100% familiar with all the mortgage vehicles, but like you said, pull in your broker who's going to do the refinance for you or the remortgage, pull in your family lawyer, pull in your accountant. And not all of us have each of these individuals, right? But if you're deciding to have a big conversation like this, we have to go and do something out of our comfort zone and make those connections with those professionals, because we owe it to ourselves to get ourselves forward. Even if you've never spoken to an accountant in your life, it might be time to go on LinkedIn and search someone who looks good to you and give them a call. They may not be.
Let's ask for referrals. I mean, let's speak to people and ask for referrals. Ask who you work with, and get comfortable with that individual. Ask the questions, and if they don't answer the questions or what they say doesn't sound right to you, then look for another person. I always sometimes when they come to me and ask my advice, you're free to work with whoever you want to work with. I will give you my opinion based on my knowledge, based on what we're trying to accomplish. But at the end of the day, you're not obligated to work with me. If there's something you don't like about me, the color of my tie or the way I put my head or whatever doesn't work right for you, that's fine. There's no problem with that. And you're free to shop around. It's entirely your prerogative to shop around and find the person that you're comfortable working with. Because at the end of the day, it's all about that comfort level. Because it's a major financial decision.
And I'm learning that more and more every day. As a new mom, I don't have time and energy for every and anybody. I'm learning that I need to work with people who like me and my approach. And I need to learn how to be okay with saying goodbye to people who are not a good fit, and vice versa. So it's something that you come to. I think it's an understanding that you come to as you grow as a person and understand yourself, that only certain types of people are going to be good for you to work with, and perhaps you want to work with. It just depends on you. Yeah.
Most definitely. I believe in that 100%.
Yep. So there's one last point that I think we should expand on a little bit, and that's equity into income, because it seems straightforward that if you have equity in your home, if you own a home or you own an asset and you have equity in that home, that's income that you could use. But not everybody understands equity and how equity works or what equity is. So let's just break that down for everybody before we wrap it up.
But the equity in your home is the value between what you owe and what the property is worth. So you got a house worth $1 million. You have a $300,000 mortgage. You got $700,000 equity sitting in that property. Now you can access all the equity by selling the property. Then what do you do after that? You go rent an apartment, you buy a tent, like what's the next move? Or you can access part of the equity, leaving a part of that in the home. So lenders will allow you to finance your home up to 80% of the appraised value. So in $1 million property, you have access for up to $500,000 worth of cash when you qualify for the mortgage based on your income and expenses. That's why I always tell clients, if you plan to do any investing in real estate, you want to access that equity. And if you're elderly, you want to access that equity before your income changes, before you retire. Because once you retire and your income drops a third of what you were making prior to retiring, then qualifying is going to be very, very difficult. So how do you get income from the equity? Simple. By cashing it out and investing it in anything that's going to give you some sort of revenue, whether it's putting it into the stock market, into dividend funds that pays you a dividend on a monthly or quarterly basis, or by purchasing a cash flowing investment property. For our conversation, because you're a realtor and I'm a mortgage professional, we'll focus on investment real estate. That's what we know best, right? And we look at any types of properties. So if you're looking for income from your equity, then you want to focus on cash flow, not just the property appreciation, because as I stated earlier, you can only access the appreciation in value by either selling it or refinancing it. And if you sell the asset, then it stops making you money, right? You've eaten up all the equity, so it's not going to make any money. So you take the cash out, the $500,000, with a plan, obviously, and then you start looking for properties that would allow you to rent them. And at the end of the month, the rent you receive is more than the expenses you pay. And the expenses usually include your mortgage, taxes, any kind of maintenance, condo fees, etc. Right? And you look across the entire country and see what is available. I was talking to a realtor partner of mine today. We were having a conversation. He bought a condo in a place called Trois-Rivières in Quebec for $124,000 last year. That positively cash flows. We have clients who work with an investment team who buy condos all across Ontario, 2 and 3 bedroom units, one to 1.5 bathroom, between $219,000 to $240,000, and they all positive cash flow. And I've watched that model over the last 10 years, and each property appreciates in value. So you've got to sit down and get your pencil and paper out in your calculator if you're not very good at math, and write your numbers down and convert that money into income. And the problem a lot of folks have is procrastination. Because, let's look at the current market. In January, a house in Brampton was worth $101.2 million. Today it's worth $1 million. You've lost the ability to access $100,000 plus of equity because you didn't make the move at the right time, right? And it's a hard conversation with clients. So take the money out, get a line of credit. You don't pay for it until you actually use the money. So it's not cost you anything other than instead of paying a few legal and the cost of the lawyer, probably $2,000 at most, and possibly an appraisal, and let that money just sit there. Because once you have the money in hand, you have access to deals. If you don't have the money in hand, then you can't make a quick decision. You've got to wait and get that whole process done. And that can take you 4 weeks. It can take you a month, 2 months. By then, the opportunity is gone, right? So we can't be fearful of acquiring debt if that debt is used to create wealth.
Absolutely.
Right?
And, I was reading a thread the other day, and it dawned on me that there's at least 3 different types of people in the Canadian market. There's the people there's lots of people in this thread on Reddit were saying that they don't care about the equity in their home. They absolutely just want to live in the home and die in the home. But those are the people that we're talking to. We're talking about us people, melanated people who want to build wealth, right? So what we want to do, or we might want to do, hopefully you want to do, is build wealth for you and your family, generational wealth, right? That's the thing. So pulling this money out and using it to do that is going to get you ahead. Or even buying with the intention of having a cash flowing property right from the get-go, so that you're not sinking yourself into this pattern of just sitting in a house for the rest of your life and just putting your family in there. This is a vehicle of wealth creation. Your home is a vehicle of wealth creation, and you see it as that from the very beginning until the end.
Yeah.
So
it's difficult to find good cash flowing properties sometimes. You've got to put in the work. You've got to put the legwork in. If you spend hours in front of the computer, and you have to find a realtor to work with who understands that the investment real estate purchasing journey is not a 2-month process. Most of the clients we've worked with on that journey, it took them a year or 2 years to find the first property that made sense, right? So you have to partner with the right professionals, because folks will get impatient. If you keep on telling me to run the numbers of this property every week, but you're not buying anything, I don't understand what you're trying to accomplish, then
right.
I may get impatient. If I understand what you're trying to do, I'm going to work with you until we find the right property. And most realtors will also, right? But you got to find a realtor who understands that whole process. Because some realtors work with first-time buyers and people who buy to live in a home, and they want you to close as fast as you can, but you want to make sure that that property makes sense.
Right.
And it can make sense in more than one way. Like I think I said in one of our previous podcasts, when you buy that piece of real estate, you want to make sure that either you can upgrade the property to make the value higher. You can change the footprint. You can go from a 3-bedroom home to a 4-bedroom home and thus increase the rent. You can convert from a duplex into a triplex or a fourplex. So you increase your rent and your value. And you want to buy it at a discount. You don't want, if you're buying as an investment, the last thing you want to do is get into a bidding war. But that makes absolutely no sense. Right? You want to buy that property most likely at a discount. So you gotta be very, very prudent in your approach to doing that.
It's not always easy at finding that discount in that hot real estate market, but we'll see what happens in a few more months. If things continue the way that they're continuing, maybe there'll be less multiple offer scenarios, and maybe you'll be able to go in and negotiate again, which we haven't seen in a long time. But you're right. There are off-market properties. There are investor networks that some realtors are tapped into. My brokerage, for instance, we're very, very much tapped into off-market properties, and we talk to different investors in the neighborhoods, and we build relationships with sellers directly so that we can find opportunities in the market. And then it is about running the numbers. How much can you cover your expenses? How much positive cash flow will you end up with at the end of the month? And there are different rental calculators. If your realtor doesn't know what an income calculator is, if they've never looked at that kind of stuff, that they're probably not into investments. And it's something that not every realtor does. But if you're looking for an investment, you're going to want to have that conversation with your realtor. How do I determine what is the cash flow positive property, and let them know that you want to invest for cash flow and not just on appreciation. Because it's easy to say, my house will go up in 5 years, but you don't know how much it will go up. You don't know if there's going to be another market correction in 5 years, which FYI, there's typically a slight market correction every 5 years. So there's things to think about when you're thinking about real estate as an investment versus real estate as a home to live in. And but we're here to help you. We are here to help you, and that's key.
And the more properties you acquire, the easier the process could become, because you're more knowledgeable. You understand the lending landscape. You understand how to deal with tenants. But you can't be a rate-conscious borrower if investing is your purpose, because then you can get caught up in the whole interest rate conversation, because not all the time your deal is going to fit one of the major banks. You may have to go to an alternative lender. You may have to go to a mortgage investment corporation. You may have to go private. So you've got to stop having that rate conversation, which so many people are obsessed with. The first thing is, what the rate's going to be. I mean, the rate is fine when you buy a home to live in, but if you're trying to acquire multiple properties, the more properties you acquire, the less and less you'll be able to work with a traditional financial institution, unless your income is significantly high. And that isn't usually the case for most people who invest in real estate. And for those who are tradespeople who have the ability to do a lot of stuff themselves, or who are part of a union where they have access to carpenters and plumbers and stuff like that, I mean, those guys should own properties without hesitation, because a lot of them, a lot of stuff that needs to be done to improve the value. You can do it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You don't need to hire a tradesperson. So you've got to be very aggressive in what we do, but with access to the right information and the right professionals. And that's very important. Not just aggressively going into a situation blindly and losing money, but you have to make sure you understand what those numbers will generate for you.
And what we're talking about is, it feels like, level 3 stuff, maybe not beginner stuff, but we don't become level 3 overnight. You go from a beginner to level 3 by doing, by trying, by having conversations. So what we're really trying to do is open you up to the mindset that there are opportunities for creating wealth out there. And you might even be sitting on a gold mine already. You might have all the equity, all the capital that you need to make opportunities happen for yourself. You just haven't thought of it. So I'm excited for what will happen now in this market. And I'm excited for the people who are going to jump on the opportunity to buy something that's maybe a little bit more affordable and turn that into an income producing opportunity in real estate. This is it, guys. We're doing it now. We're doing it. It's time to change the future, and it's these conversations.
And for younger people who are still at home with their parents, who finished university or college or trade school, and you're making a few bucks, you've got the ability to save money, find yourself that one bedroom and then condo somewhere in the city, you know, $400,000, wherever you can buy it and just rent it, you know, and stay with your parents for another 4 or 5 years. I mean, if you're a young male with no, responsibilities in terms of family and children, that's what you should be doing. You know, like we've met a lot of young men in the city, guys between the age of 25 and 30, who all are making good incomes. They all work in the trades. They've got substantial savings. One guy had $100,000 in savings. I was totally shocked. Right? No debt, and $100,000 in savings. And you want to buy an investment property. I was speaking to one today, another young gentleman who also had significant savings and no personal debt. So, so I'm always encouraging to those individuals, because there's more young men without the child responsibility who can do that than there are young women, because most young women usually have a child who are single. So they've got to deal with the cost of childcare and all that other stuff, which can really put a little bit of a strain on trying to acquire your first home. But I mean, for those of us who have parents and grandparents who own real estate, then have a family conversation. How do we use this property that's fully paid for, almost paid for, to help everybody acquire a piece of the Canadian dream and buy their first property? Regardless of what it is, it doesn't have to be anything fantastic, but let's try and get in there, take a few dollars, and buy that first property.
And if you are a single mom or a mother without a lot of resources, your parents can't help you, try leveraging your friends. I have a really great group of girlfriends, and we try to pool our money wherever possible together. And that way we can invest as a group when we're ready. And it's about just, we already have these conversations on a daily basis about extending those conversations to winning together and going on title together, buying together, investing together. You don't have to be all alone in big things like purchases. So it's about having those tough conversations so that you can win in real estate as a group, as a family.
Find your 4 closest friends. I mean, if they have, even if one doesn't have great credit, they may have some money, they may have some insight, they may have a connection. And buy that first property, right? And partner up, make sure that the ownership is registered properly. Everybody gets the benefit of doing it. And if in doubt, you talk to professionals. I mean, lawyers will speak to you for half an hour for free. You know what I mean? And you can get a lot in half an hour from a professional. You know what I mean? So don't be afraid to pick up the phone and call somebody. And if the lawyers are abrupt with you, then call the next one. Or get into your car and, and there are lots of folks who are willing to give us the information without charging us for it or charge us for it. So, but I think you're right. I mean, if you've got your core group of friends or cousins you're close to, then start having that wealth creation conversation. And let's take it to the next level. We have been lagging behind for too long, and we are going into the second and third generations now of Black immigrants in Canada. The population is growing. We are much more educated. We are earning higher incomes, many of us. We've got to slow down on the consumer debt. You know what I mean? Stop, using the credit card for your lifestyle purchases. Don't get caught up in the whole luxury car purchase nonsense. That's a total waste of money. And let's use that money elsewhere. You also you can. There will be a time when you can travel freely. Once you have the acquired assets and you can buy whatever car you want to buy. I'm not saying you shouldn't, but I mean, having a large car payment or a significant amount of personal revolving debt is going to impact your ability to purchase real estate. And that's the one asset that will help you to get wealthy, right? Owning real estate. So you want to prepare yourself for that process. If there's an issue with your credit report, you want to sit down and speak to somebody who understands the credit report, who can read the credit report properly, explain to you what the issues are and how to fix them. Sometimes it's minor, like we just worked with a client today. She had a lot of personal debt. Everything is paid on time, and I told her, I gave her a solution. I told her within about probably a month to 2 months, because there's no delinquency, your credit score would increase. And once it's increased, then we can look at an alternative product that is more ideal and with a better rate and stuff. But you got to, there's baby steps, right? But the debt is the biggest thing we have to control. But we can control that debt, the credit card and the personal lines of credits and those things. We have to manage that stuff very, very carefully.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. And in this inflationary time, our shopping, you already mentioned it, but some of us ladies, Fashion Nova is not our best friend right now. We don't need to have the latest fashions right now. Let's get our income in line before we buy that dress to go out in, right? I know it's hard not looking like a superstar 24 hours a day, but sacrifice is one thing that we're gonna have to embrace if we're gonna really build wealth in the long run. So but we can do it. We can do it.
Yeah, it's always a bit uncomfortable, It's not easy. There's a bit of discomfort when you try to grow and change and evolve. But usually the end result is always worth the effort. So let's make that short-term sacrifice. Let's have our realtors find properties for us. It might not be the perfect home. It might not be the perfect neighborhood. It's not gonna, cover all the bases and have all the little things you want. It might have an ensuite bathroom, but at least that's a bathroom. You know what I mean? So let's start somewhere, and then grow from there.
Well, thank you guys all for joining us. And at this point, Ray, we're in this conversation together. I feel like we're partners. I'm not even going to thank you because we're both invested in this, like in having this time with you. So thank everyone who took the time out to listen. And we invite questions if you have any really quickly. I know it's been over an hour. It's been a long time, but send in your questions if you do have any. And Ray, do you want to say some final parting words?
Well, no, thanks for the conversation. It's always a pleasure to chat with you and have these conversations. If anybody who wants to speak to me offline, they can call our office at 1-866-883-0885, or they can stop by the office in person. We're here in Mississauga, Milky Drive. You can look at our website to find the address and stop by, call us, ask any questions, and we're always willing to speak to anybody who wants to have a conversation with us.
Yes, and my name is Casey Ann Bradfield, and I am a real estate salesperson with Keller Williams Legacies Realty. If you're looking to buy a property or sell a property, and you're looking at some of these options to leverage for wealth in the long run, leverage wealth for your family, or even buy an investment property, that's what I want to do. I want to help you make money from real estate. So reach out to me if that's what you're looking to do. All right.
Thanks for that, Casey. Good night, everybody.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.